ASICs and the like. So another big piece we added to make this transformation possible is being able to program FPGAs with the same application software. And that really changes the rule, because now you can effectively eliminate custom hardware. So if you look at multi-core processing and FPGAs, you simply now have a platform that's ready to take on a very wide array of applications. And then we can also distribute this to have multiple versions of it. So then we move into what's now scaling to what we call cyber-physical systems, or a player worthy of playing in Industry 4.0, where we redefine how things are done using software to do it. So we also use the deployment curve. And typically, test and measurement systems are very low volume, often one-off, in the largest case, thousands at most. Whereas industrial ones may go into tens, hundreds of thousands, or even more. And the trick then is to have scalable capability to scale across the volume, from the low volume systems to the very high volume as it's needed, and all the way perhaps to custom ASICs. And it's built around this combination of multi-core processing and an FPGA. And now Xilinx just released their Zinc which has a combination of a dual ARM and an FPGA. So we literally have a chip that matches exactly this architecture for doing things with I/O connected directly to the FPGA, giving you a tremendous amount of flexibility, both in test and measurement systems and in industrial embedded systems. Now I'd like to move to the subject of test. I know a lot of folks that work in electronics and electronic design. What you like to have a system that you can prototype very, very quickly, prove out your algorithms, no matter what they are, and then start looking at exactly how you're going to deploy it, if necessary, all the way to designing ASICs. But what you'd like to do in this process is able to share IP from the design process to the test, starting with system-level test. Now I use the phrase cyber-physical test to get in vogue with the latest terminology. Hardware in a loop is very heavily used in ECUs for controlling engines and the like, and electric motors for electric cars. And protocol aware for these chips now with just a few pins, where it's serial prototype, like chips for telecom and the like. And then you get to the component level, where you go back to a more traditional kind of test, all the while sharing IP across from the design process to test it, to improve your time to market, your efficiency and operation. So we see now literally hundreds of thousands of applications that we work with, where PXI is playing the role, or one of our products, one of our, in testing just all kinds of electronic devices, chips up to microphones or whatever. So here's an example with Sennheiser in the productivity, the lowering the cost, and increasing the throughput, reducing the space required, and reducing total test costs substantially. Here's another example, again, with reducing by a factor of 3 test times in testing components. Here's one in military radios with a significant reduction in cost. Here we see Harris in this application with a 74% reduction in time. Another point is we want to make this technology work across the design flow and characterization, and then mapping what we do on into production tests. So you're able to reuse your IP all the way from the design process into the the production environment. Now, we all know things have gotten substantially more complex. If you look at a smart mobile device, it's incredible how many different technologies go into that. And the vendor never knows which one will need the most test. Issue comes up at the last minute, they have to be able to test. So it does require this ubiquitous ability to test all different kinds of things. And PXI platform has proved very favorable at doing that. Now, looking at, the standards continue to evolve with a vast number of them, and the complexity has gone up substantially, and this needs an approach that can adapt with software over time. Now, here's an example of a multi-radio transceiver test with ST Ericsson with a substantial reduction in cost, improvement in the test times, and of some 15x in one case, 3x in another, 10x in another, and 1/3 the cost. So, this has another impact on the whole test and measurement market. If I need 1/3 as much equipment, and it's cost 1/3, I've just cut the size of the market by a factor of 10. And that is a fundamental point that's going on right now, that unless there's a lot more to test, that you're making a smaller market out of it, which is interesting. So, and then here we see power amplifier characterization, TriQuint, again, where we are seeing some nice benefit. So another example was 802.11 AC, WLAN receive chain testing. This follows generations, where the first generation was done with GPIB, the second generation was PXI, and the third generation was FPGA-based PXI. And if you take a reference one of being GPIB, PXI was 10 times faster, and then PXI with FPGAs was 200 times faster. So what that meant in this case is that a lot more measurements could be made, so the customer would get much better characterization of the component because they could make 200 times as many measurements in the same amount of time. So that's value added to a customer, the end customer as well. So in this case, the characterization value add is more tests that better characterize the component. So summarizing that, we now work in both the test and measurement industry and in the industrial embedded, where in test and measurement, we want to do for test and measurement what the spreadsheet did for financial analysis, and then we use the phrase to do for embedded what the PC did for the desktop, or what the iPhone is doing as well in the smart mobile devices. In other words, a standardized platform that gets used over and over again. You get to leverage the scale as you go forward. In some applications, a combination of embedded, like hardware in the loop, for example, software-defined radio, and embedded monitoring is both measurement and embedded. So looking to the future, we now are looking at helping researchers do 5G research. I always say, I don't know what 5G is, but it's basically applying Moore's law to get more bits of communication, better response times, lower latencies, and better battery life. So these are one way to look at this. Is Professor Petweiss' view of how to look at this, and he's now working with us in his 5G lab to define what are some of the key elements of using PXI to prototype high channel count MIMO systems in a way that he can figure out what's going to be this next generation of wireless standards. So I'd like to change subjects once again to talk a little bit about our initiative in emerging countries. what we call Planet NI. Planet NI is an attempt to help small and medium enterprises to be successful as startups. And we just talked a bit about that now, creating successful startups to grow high-value jobs, make new products and services, and help make for better lifestyles for the inhabitants of the country. So one example we have is chilling milk. If power is unreliable, the milk can spoil and get lost. Pretty high percentage in some case, 30% was one example. And if you can freeze ice and then maybe using solar and power when it's available, and then keep the ice cool while there's no power, and make a control system for that, you give not only solve an important social problem, but you also create some jobs for some folks. So we also reference how we're doing by looking at the engineering grand challenges. The National Academy of Engineering has put forward 14 grand challenges, and National Instruments help scientists and engineers work on every one of those challenges. So these include health, they include energy, they include security, and they include sustainability. In other words, creating a better environment that has a lower footprint and making it so we can all have better lives and live better while leaving less of a footprint on the environment. So in summary, I'd like to point out that today's engineers will be designing the hardware and software components that go into system-level ecosystems, including systems on a chip. And, you know, the guys designing the iPhone or the Samsung smart phones, they're teams of people doing this, or engineers will use them. And there'll probably, as we were pointing out the other day, be 1,000 people using the platforms for every one that builds one. Every engineer that's helping build one. So that's a key point in how education should be thinking. It's a key point in how startups should be thinking. The opportunities created by platforms are fundamental. Now, the iPhone being an example of all the companies that have built, you know, major corporations on them, and viewing how these platforms is changing the way design is done. So either way, they'll have to understand system design. So this is a pitch to the professors that they should be teaching system design, given hands-on experience with these platforms, so that either way, if they're going to design the systems or they're going to build on them, they need to understand how they work. With that, I'd like to thank you and open for questions.